So it's 4 o'clock, and it's time for this week's Got-IT Talks. Um, this week is actually the last of the 16 sessions of the Got-IT Talks. So it's very fitting that with me today um, is Gözde Briggs of the European Patient Forum. And thank you for joining me. It's I can share with our audience, either the ones joining us today or the ones in recording, watching the recording later. This is not, luckily, the first time we've talked, but it's been a while, and I'm eager to learn more about your new projects. That's really fun. But just to for the audience, could you please, that's a common theme on these Got It Talks, share with us sort of your journey into working with digital health. How did you come to work with this field, and what really drives you in it?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Lars, actually, for giving me this opportunity. It's great to be here. I really enjoy those new innovative engagement methods, and seems to be one of those. So it's really nice to be here. So my journey, it's actually first the digital started from my side. I worked on an online services and IT and web services in my previous career, but then I wanted to move to health and realized that actually both can be put together at EPF with the digital health projects and health data related projects. So this is actually how I managed to bring the two passions I've got together and mix them together in the EPF. And that was a great opportunity given to me by this initiative I started with, Data Saves Lives. I started as a coordinator for that project. And then, of course, other EU projects came up that we work at EPF together with. So Eden, European Health Data Evidence Network, I don't know if you heard about that project. And we
Mm.
have now, of course, we have Gravitate Health. We have Digital Health Europe that's just came to an end. These were the beginnings of those journeys for me. Actually, I'm very new still. It's 3 years more or less, but it feels like 20 years because things unfold so quickly in this area. It's really light speed. So yeah, but it's really exciting.
And by background, you in your previous career, so originally you were trained as what?
Actually, my original career. So I studied linguistics, but then I did study teaching, so teacher, so pedagogy on top, and I did international and European communications and relations. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then when I started my career, IT came in, so it was mix of a lot of things, but putting them all together actually, of course, let me go into the world of websites and online services. But health was something that was always deep there. Education was always there. So yeah, I really find myself finding those, flags on my journey that I really like picking up right now. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it seems that it's a common phenomenon among a number of our Got It Talks experts that they've been on a journey. Actually, the speaker last week, Oken also started out as a teacher, so that's also a common starting point, it seems. Um, but as you mentioned, the last 3 years have felt maybe a little bit like they've lasted forever. Um, and 3 years ago, I mean, I guess you hoped that there would have been a lot of interesting projects to work on. I guess you didn't expect exactly what you signed up for to be this. But would you say that I mean, where you've that the situation with the pandemic has driven you to where you are now, or that it would have happened anyway? That this is simply the natural trajectory that you were on, or how you felt that?
Well, to be honest, in certain areas of my work, it was inevitable that we were going to move to this digital, like online webinars and seminars type of platforms. Less travels were, I mean, it was foreseen even if there was no COVID, because they were not sustainable, because you cannot travel all the time and be there and think and create at the same time, because a lot of time is spent on the travels. And so this was, I think, in most of the cases inevitable. But there are certain areas, especially engaging with patients or patient organizations, we're missing the human touch a lot, and this was something a little bit unfortunate, to be honest. But at the same time, it helped us be more inclusive, because then they can just click on a button and they can join. They do not have to do the challenging commitment sometimes to places for certain projects or for certain workshops. So there are a lot of pros and cons, but eventually we were going to shift to different directions from where we were 3 years ago. That's for sure. It's the same
Mm.
for digital health. It was inevitable, but maybe we made things a bit faster, um, less thought through before kind of implementing. But
Mhm.
the change was happening. It was going to happen for sure.
Mm. And you mentioned particular, you mentioned a few projects, but one of them that we've also, well, uh, we teased a little bit about it, is the one that's called Gravitate Health. Um, can you share some more info about what's that about?
Yes, absolutely. And so Gravitate Health is actually a very exciting IMI project, and one of those, projects where you find your place. And EPF, we found a very good work package, so-called. So it's like one of the working parts of that project is about creating a user advisory group
Hmm.
and engaging. So, because what we always advocate at EPF, you cannot engage communities if you do not educate them beforehand. They need to first understand the concepts to be able to feel inclusive and engage properly, rather than just sign posts, if you want. So for Gravitate Health, Gravitate Health is a project in general. What it's trying to do is a G-Lens concept, which is to empower the users, consumers, patients, all the end users, to understand the electronic leaflets, so EPIs, if you want, that's been out there in leaflets on paper format, but they're very difficult to read, very difficult to sustain, and they're not easy to actually digest for end users most of the time. To be able to create an electronic format of these, but not just an API, it's also collecting multiple different trustworthy and reliable resources, so people do not deviate to resources that are not actually trustworthy, so they are not misled with the information they get online from websites or wherever they are reaching out to. So to build the GLANs, of course, we would like to create a group to actually uh, do the reviews of the GLANs format. What are the concepts that would actually be useful for the GLANs to have on top of just this information leaflet being out there? What are the obstacles currently people are facing? Is it really the solution to have, electronic solutions out there? And how about inclusivity for people that are not able to actually get to the digital, platforms to actually use those tools? So this group we created is actually out there right now. It's just the beginning of it. Of course, we set up the group already early this year, and we are now evolving the group to initially get them to understand what the project is about. So we are
Hmm.
really putting the pieces of the puzzle out first for them. So piece by
Hmm.
piece, trying to explain each work package or each working group, what are their aims and how can they engage.
Hmm.
So initially we thought to educate them about digital health topics, but realized the group we created through a call actually were quite advanced in digital health topics themselves. They were really advisory level. So we thought of educating them actually on GLANs and project concepts that are more tailored to the needs of the project, more deep dive into the digital concepts and tools. So right now we are already very happy with the few workshops we've done with certain working groups, and the feedback is really promising from the group that they feel like they are valued and they're not just there to say, yeah, this is good, go on with it and sign underneath it. So in a nutshell, this is what
Mm.
Gravitate Health is doing right now.
But thinking of, I mean, this is a user advisory group. Is it sort of also uh, ironic or symptomatic that, I mean, most users out there, they don't get an education, they don't get a training, and then they're thrown in at the deep end to try to navigate, well, both digital tools of various kinds, digital services, the health system in general. Um, and I mean, is it? What do you think in the project about that element of both? I mean, this is what you need to do to gain good information from them, but most people out there can't do that. How do you? What have you thought about the? I'm not questioning your ethics here, but I guess I'm asking you to to question the ethics of the rest of the system. It's ironic, isn't it?
It is, Lars. And I think it's one of the biggest beginning challenges we had, and one of the risks we actually included in the project is we initially foresee that these people are already first, obviously IT literate, digital health literate, and they are English, high-level English speakers as well. Already, we're talking about a level of community that's not really the lay public out there or
Hmm.
consumers that are, in a city somewhere, maybe outside, far away from Brussels, I would say. So this is really the Brussels bubble or extended Brussels bubble. In that sense, you're very right, and to reach out to the lay public for these kinds of projects. I do not see this project being a solution for those type of daily use. I think
Hmm.
this project is going to be the springboard for local onboarding for
Hmm.
future, because from where we sit, we cannot channel our any projects, whatever we do, in a local setting. First, the
Hmm.
language barrier, of course, cultural barriers. I mean, there are many of those that even if we think we can, we would just lie to ourselves. So
Hmm.
why I like the idea of these projects is if we don't start from here, we
Hmm.
will never go there,
Hmm.
because these projects have the budget and the vision and the expertise to build something like a diamond, if you want, like there. But
Hmm.
maybe some countries would be able to take pieces of it, some sorts of it, but the value is out there. So I do not think this project's GLANS solution is going to be something you're going to be able to use somewhere in a village or a city in the south,
Hmm.
for example. But if the local authorities see this project as a potential to be used in their settings, there is already a resource here that's been
Hmm.
worked on. And that's how I had to see it, because you cannot start from scratch when you are in a local setting without having any guidance. So I see
Hmm.
these type of projects as actually that type of pilot resource that can be adapted to the
Hmm.
needs of the local settings.
Yeah, but also I imagine the reason why when you've set up the project is also that the traditional leaflet was not, well, was not an ideal solution either. Uh, the good old user requirements or user manuals that nobody reads ever. It's certainly there. There's access, but there's not really uptake, and that's a challenge for everyone. Um, so far you've educated the users to get them on board. Um, and of course, you might say that you, coming from EPF, is a little bit biased here, but so far from, I mean, the Gravitate Health is, of course, a project that goes far beyond the EPF. You are how many partners?
Oh, that's a very good question. In total, right now, I wouldn't be able to tell you. Let me see the
But
total.
more
Okay,
than two.
oh yeah, 39 members from Europe
39. 39.
and US as well. So
Um,
it's a public-private
and
partnership. Right? Yeah,
yes, and yes, and indeed, given this is an IMI project, there's of course
exactly.
private partners in it. So far, I mean, based on your experience, or maybe the preliminary evaluations, what's the findings here? I mean, that what are they surprised, the private partners, about what they gain from the user groups,
Yes,
or what's the
yes,
feedback?
actually. Yeah, Lars, I mean, we're just starting, so let's not get ahead of ourselves, to be honest. It's a very nice start of the project, but we're at the
Mhm.
very beginning of this engagement. But one example that struck me quite, I mean, I was surprised to see that actually when we had the user advisory group, and the user advisory group is not only made out of patients, it's consumers and healthcare professionals and carers as well. So it's a
Mhm.
mixed group.
Mhm.
Um, when we were building the wireframes and the concepts of the GLANs around the initially set up scenarios and the personas, uh, the group actually gave real world examples from their lives, especially the patients, but also healthcare professionals and the carers that was never thought of. So it was very interesting to see that actually when the users were actually talking about their real world examples of experiences about the use of the e-leaflets, I mean leaflets in general, medical leaflets, or the doctor's prescriptions, or what they need in their, if they're patients, for example, chronic disease patients, daily medical needs, like medication take, their, they need the alerts or some caution, alerts giving them that you cannot take this medication with alcohol, you cannot drive with this medication. The concepts were out there, they're always there, but when you put the context into real story of a person, it actually really made sense when building the wireframes, because then
Mm.
you can really build a story, a journey around, and not one patient's needs. Actually, it's a consumer's needs sometimes. It's a very simple thing we don't even think until you put yourself into the journey of one day you go to the pharmacy, or you went to your doctor and came back home, and all these were not really foreseen, and thank God we had these sessions.
The value of suddenly gaining insights from lived experiences provided a huge boost for that, and also, as you say, in some things that could be considered basic consumer insights. Um, isn't it interesting, or mm, maybe the word could be funny, that these, I mean, given the type of products that we're talking about, that apparently that they haven't actually, well, asked the users that much before, or is, I mean, it's not a particularly for, I guess, for medicines. It's a common occurrence on these Got-IT talks that, well, talking to users is something that you either tend to forget maybe, or do quite quickly and so. But isn't it interesting in this? What's the one once you reach that aha moment? What's then the next idea? Isn't it then a light bulb and flashing on just slightly after, and say we should have done this ages ago? Or
I asked myself the same question actually before, and when I first started, it was like wondering, isn't that like given, like it should be the standard procedure? But then I remembered from my, previous job as well, when you get too much involved into things like IT is one of those, programming, and you get in there, even if you're building something that's really for people out there, you get really involved in your geeky stuff, your concepts, your high level thinking, and also there is also something that needs to be delivered, timing. I guess that's where these little commas and exclamation marks and question marks are getting lost.
Mm.
And these are the involvement of the real users and users experiences, because it's also time consuming. It needs engagement. It's one of the key things also I want to mention is in these kinds of patient engagement or user engagement workshops, what I realized we came across actually recently is the coordinators, the moderators of these sessions are crucial. They're very important. The way they handle things, their soft skills, the way they involve people, engage people, and pull the information out of them in the way that they also feel like impactful. It's a skill, and
Mm.
it's not sometimes it's born with the talent, but some really there are certain educations you can get with these. But if you don't, it's very easy to lose the interest of these user advisory groups or boards or whoever the consumers. They can join one workshop with you, but the second, and then they will not anymore,
Mm.
because yeah, and you can engage them with salaries. Maybe you can hire them, but then it's not neutral. It's biased. It's no longer, you're not talking yourself out there anymore if
Mhm.
you're really engaging them as like full salary. So as EPF, we always want to involve patient groups as on an honorarium basis, so because they have committed time and energy. But this should really remain something as a passion and advocacy level involvement from their side, so that it actually still has a meaning and the reality truth behind it.
But what would I mean? There's a multi-level thing going on here. But what would your advice then be based on those experiences, that we should mandate more about how that users should be involved, that we should educate people in facilitation better, more. I mean, I'm maybe putting words in your mouth here, but I'm, how have you thought about maybe in the EPF how systemically to change this perspective?
Well, because in patient engagement before were and other topics than digital health data, digital tools, it's been there forever, patient engagement, and it's not something new. It's not a new concept. Of course, now patients are needed more because in the end they also became customers and they became more, they need to co-create. So these kind of have those digital tools and solutions have an impact in the overall, society. So there's one thing that always stays: education can never be one-sided. You cannot just educate the patients and then expect them to contribute to multi-stakeholder commitments or engagements, because the other parties need to understand the needs and the space the patient community holds when they come and join these multi-stakeholder discussions. So patients shouldn't be in the center of the discussion because they shouldn't be under the spotlight. They should be equally treated as a round table of actually partners discussing. And for that, the education needs to be for each party that's involved in kind of discussions. Call it a workshop, call it a seminar, call it anything educational or co-creating. All the parties have responsibilities to get educated or empowered about the other party's needs and potential commitments and contributions. So they can communicate. It's really speaking the same language. Doesn't work when you do not understand each other's values, needs, and on the other hand, also prejudices that you cannot ignore. So you need to know what transparency is. So there are multiple different aspects to it. Has always been there for patient engagement, but with digital health, it's a lot more fundamental because there is a lot out there and false information is out there. You know, people are misled. So the trust is a lot more easy to shake. So that's why I believe that would be one of the key messages is training, but not only for the public or the consumers or the patients, but all the engaged stakeholders.
So would you say that the difference between the classical scenario and then the digital is simply one of mass, or is there also intrinsically a difference between the two scenarios?
For me, the classic and the digital, I see them with different target audience as well. I mean, what I wouldn't say one is better than the other. They have different pros and cons. So they have to run together at
Mm.
least for some time for people to be able to do the healthy transition.
Mhm.
But they still have different target audiences that you cannot ignore. If you do, you lose certain communities and they get lost in the discussions or in their involvement in real world. I mean, with their commitments. So they both exist. They're both important for different target groups, for sure.
Well, one thing that I've been exploring or that we've been talking about in the Got-IT talks have been the element of where in classic communication or dissemination or health literacy for that matter, that you've often had you had the population out there, the target audience, that where we try to adapt the material so that they would be better at appreciating it, at using it, at understanding it. Um, but also an element in the digital where it's not just the target audience that are struggling a little bit, but also the senders or the professionals. I mean, it seems also sometimes that, I mean, it's not just the end users out there that sometimes are struggling in using this new tool, but also the system has a slightly different. I mean, they've developed open, not necessarily Pandora's box, but they've opened a can of worms that they weren't really expecting, and to thinking that it would help boost productivity and help better compliance, and found that it suddenly gave them a lot of new tasks too. Um, is that how you is that also a difference that you see?
Yes, absolutely. I guess one of the things is in mass production. So it's when you do these things in the digital world, it's I think the difference between the needs have also shown themselves a lot more. Is there is no one fit them all for sure. It hasn't been there in none of the solutions, but in the digital they became more apparent. They became more obvious.
Mm,
I think also this is one of the challenges when you're developing a tool or a digital health solution. You can only target certain group of people maybe, or you can envision certain needs, but you cannot aim at a majority anymore. I mean, the majority has changed, shifted to different places. It moves all the time as well. The needs change much faster than it did because this is a very fast consuming market as well, and the competition is much bigger.
mhm.
Development of solutions are faster than they were before for the classic way, but the competition is faster, also growing, so everybody's running faster. So I see exactly the challenge. It is not easy to catch up with the changing needs of also the end users for the developers, because there is only so much so you can put in there, unless you come out of, you know, certain solutions we know that work very well because they're ready to evolve. So they live with plugins, they live with, you know, version 2.0, 3.0. So they permanently, constantly monitor the needs, feedback, and then work on their weaknesses. Don't take things for granted, but of course it's a very exhausting process, and there is no guarantee your second version will work better than your first version, for example. So co-create can work up to a level for sure. But even I think patient-created digital health solutions, which they exist already, which is an amazing actually progress in the communities of patients. But even they will need to sit down and consider about changes and improvements, because also the certain disease areas needs change. There are new developments happening faster, so the needs of the solution needs to be adapted. Just an example. So this was meant to happen, and I think it would have happened in the classic way as well, and things would have moved slower. But this is more obvious right now because everything is digital and out there and moving very fast.
But again, here you have the promise of a better world before us, and right now we're struggling in actually doing that. How I mean that increased pace continuously. For some of the doctors or the nurses, I know that the concept of burnout is one that comes to mind. Is this something that would also be a challenge for some of the patients, that they sort of reach uh, peak annoyance, peak digitalization, and can't take any more, and then just throw the phone away, or or I mean, just refuse to do anything? Is this how are you I mean that we see certainly not necessarily completely a parallel, but the process with which the vaccines were developed very quickly. Also, it seems that some people were perhaps surprised or taken aback by the speed with which this happened. Um, do you think that we can experience, if you will, patient burnout as well?
The information pollution as well, and also digital health pollution out there. Digital health solution pollution, let me put it that way. It's first also knowing which tools and which solutions they have in their phones that they can download, which ones are really, you know, trustworthy, which ones are really something that they can. So they have their own communities, certain patient groups that have their own communities. They have their forums where they discuss those type of solutions. They advise each other. They even educate each other on how to use them and how to best use them and everything. But these we're talking about patients that have their own communities, engage with them, and they're part of a community. Of course, there are those ones out there that are not at all, but they still hear these things exist and improve certain communities' health. Whereas for them, it's frustrating because for them it is not a solution because they don't know how to and which way. So there is much more guidance needed when you are introduced to the digital world. And certain regions from EPF, for example, membership, we recently talked, and it was actually one of the discussions at our EPF Congress, is certain European countries already, they do not have digital health records, electronic health records. So they haven't even gone to that level in their own setups. So their medical records are nowhere electronically unless they kept them somewhere paper, and God knows what happens. So when you talk about these, And then you talk about digital solutions. There is no way they can even feed their some of their applications, because there is nothing electronic that comes from the regulatory or national level. So of course they generate another type of question mark about, are we being equally treated, which we all know it's very difficult to accept, where certain things are evolving faster and you are waiting for your system to adapt, even something that was adapted 15, 20, 30 years ago in certain other European countries. So we see all these, of course, but we also see the good scenarios where really digital health solutions made the life of the patients, when they go and talk to their healthcare professional, they're more prepared. They have their answers ready, and they can even challenge their doctors more, which is not always appreciated by the doctors. But again, if you're a chronic disease patient, you live with your disease for sometimes for a long time, that actually you might have certain amount of knowledge that you are prepared to discuss, not maybe challenge, but discuss with your doctor. Now with the digital solutions, they even have a more engaging platform that they can actually feel empowered.
Yeah, I saw, I think yesterday maybe, a graphic that explained how the process of certification of digital tools in Germany, how that actually unfolds. Um, uh, and I mean, uh, it was also a little bit interesting that that was nice. I guess it's nice that there is such an accreditation process. I find personally, um, but I was also conscious of the fact that the App Store, where these products are shared or sold, um, is about 10 years old or more. So it's really nice that this is coming along, but isn't it interesting, or what's your thoughts about the fact that this is a significant lag, isn't it?
It is. So from the concept to development to be in the market as a solution and being visible,
Mm,
it shouldn't take that long, of course. But I guess a lot of regulatory delays and also a lot of things happen behind the scenes after the solution is developed, right? So
mm,
of course they're all there for things to work smoothly, but then you are actually creating those misleading applications that are out there so quickly.
mm,
And unfortunately, people jump into those solutions that are not really solutions that were the rightful solutions for them. So
mm,
uh, it is, certain things I think are going to take a pace when
mm,
the regulatory decisions are made, because these are very new for them as well. As we all know, technology moves faster than regulations. Technology moves faster than policy decisions, because those take a lot of time and process. But
mm,
once they're done and once the establishment is more structured, things start to flow faster. I think we are on that type of turning point,
mm,
that where we get this set up, things will be more easily in the market, more easier for the produce, so the products to be actually in the hands of the consumers much faster. But right now, it's indeed, the question mark is not only on our heads, also on the authorities.
mm. So on a I don't know, a scale from 1 to 10, based on and I'm not going necessarily to hold you to it, but how positive would you say that you are, or EPF are, with the current development? Is this a positive scenario where you, as you say, a turning point where you're really happy to see that the regulatory frameworks are catching up, and so next year we'll not have a pandemic, and paradise will unfold, and no, is that not really? Okay.
No,
So no,
no,
so it's not a 10.
no,
Okay.
it's not a 10. It's not the pink glasses, unfortunately.
Mm,
But still, I must admit, definitely we as EPF also believe things are coming to a turning point, because COVID is true that made things be more focused on. So the gaze have turned towards the concepts which for years they were not. So as we all know, these were not highlighted topics until COVID was there around us. So we believe it's going not as fast as the needs are there, but we fear as well it's going too fast, because then, as we said, the trust is questioned. Like when you think something not through enough and you just bring out the things. I know the time is ticking when you're a patient and you don't have the patience, which is very normal, but actually it needs to protect the whole population as well. So in that sense, we as EPF believe in the properly set up, regulations in place will be faster because of the COVID. Thanks to COVID, I do not want to say, but we should take at least a bit of a profit from this horrible experience we lived as societies. So, so not pink, but not black either. I'd say still it's yeah.
I'm hearing something at least on the positive side of
Yes.
5, maybe. But you raise another good question or issue here. As you say, it's hard to thank the pandemic for anything. Yet it's interesting that some of the things that are possible during the pandemic are things that we could have wanted to have happened before. And is it actually just sort of a part of a natural evolution that sometimes you need these extreme situations for finally the ketchup to leave the bottle, or is that even as tragic as the situation that we're in, is this the types of situation that we need as human beings sometimes to make leaps possible?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, I mean, I don't like giving too many metaphors, but it made me think about the situation where you're on top of a cliff and there is the water, the sea under you, and there are rocks down there. Unless something is chasing you or somebody pushes you, you wouldn't jump, because it's not worth the risk. Because there are risks. You don't exactly know the risks. You didn't go down to analyze the risks. You are not sure what is going to be the damage if you jump, or maybe not damage, because there is no emergency. There is no rush for it. Whereas if somebody pushes you through, you learn to swim in it one way or another, if you survive it. So indeed, I think as humanity, we went through this pandemic and it made some major jumps, but that's the word I use, jump. We should be very careful about jumps, because you leave gaps between where you started and where you landed. And those gaps, once we feel more secure and safe again, needs to be filled again. You cannot ignore them when you jump from one place to another, because that gap eventually, it's like a bridge. It collapses if you don't feel something strong underneath it. So I think we will definitely go further, but we have to be very careful about going further with these digital developments. And always, once we feel, as I said, feel safe and secure, go back and fill in the blanks, because there will be a lot of communities, people we have left behind, or issues that we just did not realize when we jumped. It will look nice, but won't last long.
I guess that's some very good words of advice for policymakers and health professionals in the work ahead for the coming years. For the digital developers, though, looking perhaps more concretely on specific topics, what would you, based on your experience, advise them, or maybe from the Gravitate Health project, what's some key advice you would share with them that they should be conscious of in either in general in the digital development or post-pandemic? What should they really focus on?
Well, they really need to focus on the full picture. So they cannot only see one stream when they're developing something. It has to be doing a full round from the beginning to covering every stakeholder involved that needs to be involved, and from every step of the way, not just when they're needed. And aim at for after COVID is done, hoping it's done, to go back to the first work they have done and where they are at that moment, and see if they have missed something in between. Because something in the development of a digital tool might look very small when it's the application out there, but it might have had an impact on certain societies and communities that they haven't seen because they were moving very fast through the COVID, kind of catching the COVID boom, which is something they have to take into account, that its success doesn't mean long-term success. Sustainability should be their key, because communities, societies, especially patients, really need sustainable solutions, not things that keep on changing. Trust is very important. So solutions that are sustainable and going to be around them for a long time, like a full-time support, a long-term support, it's really, really crucial.
Mm-hmm. And maybe without and don't get me wrong, being too personal here. I mean, as you said, you've been in this particular field for 3 years that have felt like a couple of decades. Um, but either from the basis of what you're doing in Gravitate Health or in Data Saves Lives, what are you hoping to engage yourself in the coming years? More of the same, or what's sort of on your horizon?
Well, I really would like to get more and more in the patient engagement platforms where we are talking about the health data and digital health, and call it the educational ones, or call it really the engagement in impactful discussions, debates. But I would like to see more patient organizations, at least to start with, from regional, local setups, to feel more empowered. I don't like the word empowered, more ready and
Hmm.
confident enough to raise their hands
Hmm.
and be able to ask a question or answer a question, or say, okay, in this meeting, I actually understood what they were talking about. That would be my personal path for throughout EPF, definitely to be able to bring on board as many patient representatives, communities as possible, and them to feel actually they understand what's said and they can actually contribute to it.
Do you feel that the system is ready to listen to?
They will eventually be, because one time you make the mistake, if you don't give up, you learn from it, and the second time you talk differently. I mean, it's just, we have to, nobody should discourage patient communities and the communities in general. But even if they do, there are other areas where they can actually feel confident and discuss. So that's why patient communities within each other should also start more conversation or in discussion as well, because that's the best way they can support each other to feel the trust in themselves to go out there a second time, a third time, and not give up trying. Eventually, they will be heard. Maybe not like the same wordings. They would not be able to use the same fancy, high level points that all these people are talking about, but their experience will be real impactful, because they will be talking about real experiences that they live or their communities are. So it's really important to make them not get discouraged and keep their feet in the discussion for as long as it takes.
Sounds like some very sage advice, Gözde. Thank you very much for joining me. It was a pleasure, and I wish you luck both on Gravitate Health and in 2021 we all need a little bit of luck. I at least for now. Thank you very much, and I look forward to be discussing the future of digital health at some other point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lars, so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.